Hello, welcome back to Uplift Equine Classical Dressage Coach Reviews USDF. Today we're going to be doing 3 4th level tests. 4th level is the last level in the USDF before you move on to the FEI, which is the Fédération Équestrienne Internationale. And that's the Grand Prix St. George Intermediate 1 and 2, and then the piece at the top of the cake, Grand Prix. That's what you'll see at the Olympics. But today we're going to be going back down to 4th level. Now, as a 4th level rider, what I would expect is that I see none of your aids, that your horse is just carrying itself all the time, within the test at least. What I mean by that is the thoracic sling is lifted and strong and carrying itself and the rider to the point where that movement is just effortless. It's like the horse's head is not going up and down. The horse's head is just there. He's seeing what's going on. He's ready for battle, and the rider is just poised. That's what a 4th level rider is supposed to look like, and that's what a 4th level horse is supposed to look like. No contact issues, no strength issues. I mean, you can get evaluated by a judge, but do that in a schooling test, because that will give you way more information than any regular test would. If you've gone through the schooling tests and your instructor and all of that, everything's going fine, and then you're going to go for the tests, make sure that you go into it prepared, so that when you read the comments of the judge, you can say, yeah, that makes sense, we're struggling with this, or no, I think we did a really good job on this, I'm not really sure why. But you'll have less of those I'm not really sure why they scored me that way. Because if you know what you're getting into with that schooling test, where you'll go through the test, the judge will give you live feedback, and that's going to give you more information than waiting until a test is done and then seeing your test results and then trying to chase down the judge later. Schooling tests or schooling shows are way better for that. So moving on, coming back to what the 4th level test is all about, we are adding the collected walk pirouette, canter half pass, the very collected canter, and half pirouette. So the very collected canter is the preparation for the full canter pirouette, and you get the collected canter, then you get it collected a little bit more so that they can pivot on their hind end at the canter. But the trick is, you should not lose impulsion, rhythm, or tempo. If one of those things is lost, your canter pirouette is not a canter pirouette. It is a proto-canter pirouette. But if you look at the Grand Prix level, sometimes that will happen. But we're not going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about that in a different series, judging FEI. So, but for this, we introduce those movements. So if you are showing or testing at 4th level, either you're very good at 4th level and this is as far as you want to go and you just want to have fun and move on to something else, that's perfectly fine. But if you are super into dressage, you want to go into Grand Prix, you should be schooling at Grand Prix St. George. Truly. So let's see the tests, and here we go for the tests. So this is a nice pair. I like them so far. Moving in here, I see that the horse has contact issues because they're tilting their head, and they are, well, they don't want to take contact here. But when the horse went down to a halt, he kind of just planted himself there. He just kind of fell there. Just dropping his entire front end down on his front legs, including his head. That's basically, they're like, okay, I'm collecting. Ugh, fine, we'll halt. It just seems like this entire test, this horse is holding its breath. It just seems like that. But you've got some very obvious leg aids. You've got your contact issues. And it just seems like the horse is leaning on this person's hands, and since this person's kind of leaning back quite a bit, it looks like the person is bracing against the horse. I could be wrong. I'm not there, but that's what it looks like. So here you can see what they're trying to do is a medium trot, but it just seems to be quickening. They're losing rhythm because the horse's thoracic sling is clearly dropped, in my opinion. Because the horse's head's got a set, and if the horse's thoracic sling is dropped, it cannot push with its hind end properly. So you're just going to get a quickening of pace and not a true lengthening. You've got your shoulder in, but his head is tilted. So you could see the body is tilted in a way that the horse is stepping underneath of itself, but its inside shoulder is dropping. So it's causing the horse's body to become tilted. So with this pair, I would do more strengthening. I would do more strengthening patterns more often, and complete rest days. And if they don't already have the horse turned out 100% of the time, I'd have the horse turned out 100% of the time. When they're browsing through their environment for looking for food and snacks and all of that, they use their thoracic sling so much when they do that. But if they're standing in a stall all day, or even half the day, they're not using any muscles. They're just dropped and resting, sleeping. It's not good for them. So riding for an hour, 4 days a week, if that's the only time out they get, they're not going to be able to build the muscles that they need for this sort of thing. The turnout is of high importance for that. So as you can see, the horse is nodding his head. So that is a sign that their thoracic sling is dropped, and they're using their head as a fulcrum to get themselves to lift enough to canter. And the horse's butt kind of coming up and down is another indicator of the horse's thoracic sling being dropped. The horse is trying to swing his hips underneath himself, so in doing that they pop it up, swing it under, and then pop their head up to try to lift their shoulders to get the canter going. And it's really rough to ride through that. But that means the horse is not strong enough for this movement or doesn't understand how to use their body for the movement. And of course, if they don't understand how to use their body for the movement, they're not strong enough for the movement because they're not using their body correctly for the movement. So those muscles that would be used are not being used. It's a chicken before the egg sort of thing. So yeah, you've got this horse. He's tilting his head, dropping his shoulder, using his head as a fulcrum, contact issues because of that. And it's stiff during the changeover. So I don't see a lot of good self-carriage with this pair. And with this, it looks like it was a lengthening, but since it's 4th level, I'm fairly certain that this was supposed to be a medium. You just see quickening of pace or lifting of the legs a little bit. It's not a true lengthening gait. And with this horse kind of fighting his own weight, in the rider's weight through these changes, I would say if I was a judge, be like, nah. They're technically kind of getting through the movements, but like I said, this is a test. You shouldn't be just getting through the test. You should be confidently going through the test and getting good scores. You don't want to go, not that people don't do it, you don't want to go through a college level test that you just crammed the night before through and to just get through it. You're gonna get a D-. I would say these guys are D-. Now this guy, this paint horse, I absolutely love. They did a very good job training this horse. The rider and the trainer, or if the rider's the trainer as well, I applaud you. Because if you want to see what good self-carriage looks like, whilst on the vertical, through a test, this is it. These guys are strong, they're balanced, they do the movements, and they are a very good representation of what a 4th level pair is supposed to look like. As you can see, there's a lot of active hind leg movement in that trot. I know it's kind of a lower quality video. I don't see a lot of leg aids coming off. There is some, but not a lot of them. The rider doesn't look stiff in the upper body, so it doesn't look like the horse is like leaning on them. The horse truly looks like they're in self-carriage. And by the way, this is not because they are wearing a double bridle. They are using a double bridle because he wants to use the curb. The curb does not give you that lift and self-carriage that you need, or headset. It's not a gadget fix. This is the result of actual training that this horse has received. And it's good. The horse looks like he's going forward down in this more extended walk. I didn't look at the tests, but I don't think it's the free walk in this one. But I could be wrong. That's a very nice quiet collection of the reins. And here's the walk pirouette. And that's a very good representation of a walk pirouette. The horse didn't do the reining pivot. They not as good as the other way, but they did a very small circle with their hind end and a very large circle pivoting around with their front end. And look at that transition. The transition from the collected walk to the canter. Amazing. And I'm not kidding. They just went right into the canter. There was no head popping, there was no rushing, there's just walking then cantering. That's the kind of self-carriage that we are looking for. And there you go, you've got your change. And that was a nice change. And this horse's head's not bobbing, it's not tilting. And there's your medium canter. Now he could have extended a little bit more, but with that wonderful self-carriage, you just can't get any better with that. I would love to see this horse in the Grand Prix. if he continues to be trained well, at least. Now the changes are a little rough, but you can straighten that out pretty easily with this horse because he's already in self-collection, or self-carriage. Full collection, self-carriage. And what they're doing here is partial pirouettes. So this is the test that kind of preps you for that half pirouette that you're going to see at the last test. And look at that trot. He just kind of rolls right through that thing. And of course the cameraman gets a little lazy here. And then there's the halt. Wonderful. All right, here's the last one. So this horse, he has moments of self-carriage. And as you can see, he's behind the bit, which is fairly indicative of them using heavy side reins to get a headset and heavy rein usage to get a headset. So what you'll see here is he'll have his thoracic sling dropped, his head up, and just as you're seeing here, a very stiff front leg movement and kind of a lazy hind end movement. You'll see in any of the transitions, you'll see that. So you've got some self-carriage in the shoulder in and the half pass, because you have to. In order to actually do a half pass, you actually have to have some sort of self-carriage because they're crossing under. But yeah, he just kind of loses it. He's got a nice halt here. There's the reverse. There's that heavy leg in the reverse. I don't like it when they do that. So this rider looks like they're slightly behind the movement, probably bracing on those reins. They've got some heavy or obvious leg aids. And this horse, to me, just looks like his front end's dropped, his head is up, and he's just kind of trailing along with his back end. I know he's a longer horse, but that has nothing to do with what I'm seeing. You see the rider's using aids every single step. So that was a nice transition. So I'll give them props where they deserve props. So you've got the counter canter. And then the change. So you jumped into the change fairly well with this, with that change at least. But he does look like he's kind of getting a little lazy with that counter canter. Looks like he's kind of doing a renvers a little bit. And then the change. He just looks like he's kind of pulling his hind end back when he changes. Yep, so he lost his rhythm a bit because he bunny hopped through that change. So bunny hopping through a change is indicative of a weaker hind end or a disconnected hind end. And now that's a nice medium canter. but it's them trying to throw their hind end underneath of themselves because their hind end wasn't underneath of themselves in the first place. So you've got that bunny hop look. It's just, you have a dropped forehand, and then here's the half pirouette. The dropped forehand that comes up sometimes. So like he's in kind of self-carriage, but kind of not. And there it is, yep. So he's losing tempo and rhythm, and he went down to a trot for a couple of steps. So that pirouette is not what it should be. So whenever he does this change, he loses his rhythm. He slows down a bit and then hops forward. So he's coming up into self-carriage for the changes, but you can see that he has to bring himself up into self-carriage, which means he's not in self-carriage all the time, like the other horse was. So this means he's got this headset, his head's stiff and his shoulders are kind of pitched forward a bit more. And so he's not in true self-carriage collection all the time. You want the true self-carriage collection all the time for this level of riding. And so this horse is likely to develop swayback and other problems like that, joint issues, like hock issues or something, because they're not using their bodies the way they need to be using their bodies. And that's the big difference. So like the first horse, very little self-carriage at all. You can see their, the hind end's popping up, the front end's popping up. They're trying to get themselves together and they just can't. Frustrating to watch. The second horse, perfect self-carriage. I love it. I loved it. And then the last one is kind of like in between, a bit of self-carriage, a bit of not self-carriage. They're doing okay. They're doing the best they can, but I think I know exactly how they train the horse. And remember, the last two had the double bridle. The double bridle does not make self-carriage. Self-carriage makes self-carriage. The double bridle is just a tool that you use for training. It is not a fix. It's not a gadget fix at all. You don't gadget fix dressage. You'll have problems like with this last horse. But yeah, all in all, they did a pretty good job. The middle one, of course, I keep saying they're my favorite. I hope they had good scores on that test. But yeah, that's the USDF level, 4th level test. And all of these horses are probably going to be moving on to FEI level. The first horse probably not, but moving on to FEI level and going through the Grand Prix St. George. But if you are If you are interested in having your test reviewed for free on this channel, just send it to me. You can even have it completely anonymous. Send it to me at upliftequine@gmail.com. Just let me know that it is for the USDF whatever level test review, and just about once a month or once every quarter, depending on how many people actually send me, if at all, I'll be compiling them and giving them a good review. And remember, these reviews are supposed to be positive, they're supposed to be educational, they are not to tear people down, so just remember, if you send your test in to be reviewed, I am not going to tear you down, although I will be honest. So, be prepared for that. But thank you for watching, and thank you for joining me on the Dressage Coach Reviews USDF levels. Thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Please subscribe if you want to see more of this content more often. Thank you.